Everybody. This is Patrick from the Poison Pen Bookstore in Scottsdale, Arizona, and it's a treat to have Matthew Quirk and Joe Finder with us today. Today's on sale date for Matthew's brand new book, The Method, which is a terrific thriller, and um, and also he's had tremendous success with Netflix recently. Congratulations on all that.
Oh, thank
Uh,
you.
yeah, and our friend Joe Finder, of course, acclaimed prolific author, uh, most recently of The Oligarch's Daughter, which is such a brilliant book.
So good.
It's just out in paperback, or been out for a little while, I guess.
Just came
But
out in paperback. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And Joe's very kindly agreed. Barbara is gone on a 6-week junket to Australia and New Zealand, and just striking off all these bucket list kind of trips. So, good for her. Um, but what I thought I'd do is I'm going to put a link. Matthew has signed some books for us, some copies of The Method, and they're going to be wending their way back to the store here shortly. I'll go ahead and put a link in the comments field to the very few remaining signed copies that we have available. But I think Matthew would probably sign some others, some more copies if pushed.
Gladly.
Yeah. And if you have questions for Matthew or Joe, go ahead and type them in. And I'm going to go off screen. And towards the end of the hour, I'll come back and I'd be happy to ask any of your questions. So I guess, Joe, over to you.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. Hey, Matt. So let us start with the elevator pitch for the method.
Oh yeah, because I've
All
I've
right.
done Hollywood now, so
Yeah,
you have
exactly.
to
Let's
you have to
do it.
boil it down to that one line. I know you
Right.
spent the time in the trenches there.
No, but
What if
but
it?
a longer elevator ride. So
Yeah. Well, what if an actress, in order to survive and save her best friend, had to become as lethal as the character she portrayed on screen? The method.
that's great. Tell us
Would
some
you
more. Tell us
would you
some
like
more
a
about
longer
how you got
elevator
there.
pitch? Oh, okay, yeah. So the
Yeah.
method was inspired in part by my time behind the scenes on the Night Agent show and seeing all the training that the actors put in. And also, I have some lifelong friends who were theater people, actors, and dancers in New York. I grew up in New Jersey, which is where the book's set. And so, seeing all of their experience, um, and then going behind the scenes on the Netflix show, I was like, well, I'm going to write an actor book. And it had this setup, which is that elevator pitch line I just mentioned, where you have someone who has sort of been pretending their whole life to be something and doing all that training. And then the question is, can she do it for real? And her best friend goes missing. And then she goes looking for her in a very kind of Joe Finder sort of book where you have an every person who gets into some trouble. And I was inspired by a lot of your stuff.
Mhm.
And then she finds herself over her head and she connects with the FBI and there's some undercover fun. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then the character, she took
Hmm.
on Anna Vaughn. She took on a life of her own because, I don't know if you do this when you write books, but
Yeah.
characters, they sort of reveal themselves over time. So I just knew she had some unresolved issue and this like anger. And it ties into the title of the book because she was afraid to do method acting because she
Mhm.
thought she would lose control because she had all this unresolved stuff from her past. And then as I was writing the story, I started to excavate kind of what was going on with her, and it just organically all came through. So, yeah, she really took on a life of her own, and I think it's my favorite book. It was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's really a terrific book.
Thank you.
And so it's interesting. You didn't plan it all in advance. It sort of took over in a
Well, so
sense.
I'm an outliner, and
Yeah, me too.
I know the literary credibility thing to say is that it's all the character, and you just start with the character. But sometimes I will start with a premise and a setup, and
Yeah.
then the character will be in that situation. And there's some bromide somewhere that like action reveals character.
Mm.
Uh, and so often I'll have an interesting character and I'll sort of know where the story is going to go. And in
Yeah.
part, that's just because I like to lay the twists in uh, deliberately. and not to rewrite endlessly and be pulling all-nighters if I can avoid it. So I do map out the plot, but then I'll write a really rough first draft, and then there'll just be sort of unresolved things. Like I'll have Anna Vaughn, you'll see this in the opening scene. She's in a fight scene, and then she's dealing with a lot of the BS that comes with being an actress, and they sort of um, they're going to kill off her character. She gets upset, or she's rightly frustrated, and it sort of boils over. And then, but I didn't know where that anger was coming from. So I had the action, and then in draft two, three, four, umpteen, uh, I started to figure that out. And then it's so fun because you take bits and pieces from people and then your own issues, but you transform them a little bit and make them much more interesting than your normal issues. So yeah, it's always a really fun ride. I like that balance of having a map, and then if I find a new twist halfway through, that's
Yeah.
great. But at
Yeah.
least I know where I'm going. And then having the characters sort of figure themselves out. Because I think when you meet somebody, it's like that, when you kind of figure out how
Hmm.
crazy they are or what their crazy is, because everyone has one. Or when you're figuring out like your own stuff. Like people are like, hey, you have the father stuff in every book. And I'm like, oh, really? I had no idea.
Where'd that come from? Right.
Yeah, yeah. And my dad and I have a great relationship. He's a wonderful guy.
So Anna is your first female protagonist.
This is true.
So
Yeah.
why did you decide to put a woman at the center of the story?
Well, I've always done two-handers with a
Hmm.
really strong female character. So I felt um, like I'd kind of tested those waters enough. And I don't know if it was a conscious decision. It just seemed like that was the right character. And I wonder if I initially thought of having a male actor. I don't think so. That's just kind of how the book came together for me. And then, I was concerned that, or I was careful to make sure that it was, done well. And my editor is a woman, and I have a lot of female first readers. And I really enjoyed it because since after the 500, I've been writing like kind of national security types and
Yeah.
special operators. And you know, it's funny that like the Navy SEAL buddy of mine, he doesn't act like super tough. He'll be like, I think I would have been great in theater. But when you're writing these books, you find yourself uh like there's certain emotional ranges for each character. So I really enjoyed writing the female lead because she had a bit of a broader range than the kind of tough guys I've been writing recently. But she also had that tough guy aspect.
So how did writing her differ from writing other protagonists?
It really didn't,
It
you know.
didn't.
It
Yeah.
didn't, I could just it was less about her sex and more about the setting that
Hmm.
she was an actor in New York. So, it was there's more music stuff in this. There's more stuff I know from my theater friends. There's just a
Hmm.
different sort of set of references because it's not all set among Navy SEALs or FBI people. So yeah, it didn't really change much. And then there was, there was a couple things, and it was interesting. Like I had her wringing her hands, and my editor said, women don't do that. I said, oh, okay. Yeah. What
Really?
about Lady Macbeth? Something like that.
So the method is set in and around New York City, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is a change from your most recent books anyway.
Yes.
Not since, I think, The Directive. Have you had a book set in New York?
Yeah.
But you live in San Diego now.
Yeah.
So did you have to go back to the city and refresh your memory or what?
I did. And my family lives just outside New York. Well, now they're in the Jersey suburbs. So I'm always back there, and all the publishing stuff is there. And then the night agent was filming there. So
Hmm.
it was part of it was just me being lazy because I like to do research like you do. And I had this incredible experience of going on set, and I was just like, well, I have to set something here because going onto a soundstage and going to all of these like these cool sets, they filmed the first season at this abandoned mental institution in Vancouver. It just got my imagination fired up. So yeah, I went back to New York, and it was really fun too because I've set parts of the directive there, and but I spent my teens kind of going back and forth to New York. I took a course at Columbia, and then my brother was an undergrad there, so I was there almost every weekend. And then all my friends moved up there for the theater stuff, so I was like, wandering around there, getting into trouble. So it was a really fun book to write, to dig into all of that. It wasn't so much, walking around the streets as it was kind of remembering all this fun stuff from my past.
Huh? Um, Even at the beginning of the method, Anna is wondering whether it's time for her for a career change. So is it your intention to bring her back for other adventures?
I haven't decided yet. I don't have a plan. And you and I
Okay.
have talked, and I should have a plan. Um, I really need a plan, but I'm really enjoying these standalones that hopefully
Hmm.
sort of can start their own book series or television series. And so I left it open with Anna, and well, not to spoil, maybe she gets killed at the end. Um, and I would love to bring her back. So that's there. And with all the books, I keep an open door at the end. So it has a sense of conclusion, but I do like to have people kind of ride off into the sunset without being too cheesy about it.
Hmm. Well, she's a great character, so
Thank you.
you sort of feel like it feels like like somebody who needs to sort of be used in other ways, in other plot ways, I think.
Yeah, well, she's set up for it, and I mean the
Right?
chameleon, the basic hook and basic premise that you have an actor who can go undercover and shapeshift is a pretty durable idea.
Yes.
And we sold it to a TV studio, optioned it to a TV studio, so they're working on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, long may it rain.
Yes. Yeah. Um, the book has a screenplay feel to it, I think, in a good sense. Um, did it start that way?
No, I've never written a screenplay, but when I was starting out, I I love TV film. When it was Netflix and you would do the DVDs and you would pick the DVDs at your best and they would come and you just wanted to watch some trash and you'd be
Hmm.
sitting there with some Antonioni DVD and you'd be like, all right, film buff time. So that's I was like really into film. And I at the same time I was writing novels and the screenplay and film story stuff, some of which is a little formulaic, like Save the Cat, but Save the Cat's great. It's like one of the guides. And then some of them, like Story by Robert McKee, are
Yeah.
brilliant. And it's,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's how to plot. You can plot Die Hard with it, or you can plot, like a Bergman film, because
Right.
maybe the bad guy isn't Hans Gruber. Maybe the bad guy is self-deception. And I was like, oh, the villain is anyway. So I and then the way I write books is I just walk around and I picture what happens, and then I sit down and write it down. So that might lend itself. So I walk around watching it in my head, and then I get back to the computer and I like scratch out what I think is going to happen, and then I type that up. So I have a
Uh,
very visual kind of
yes.
approach, which I think
Yes.
lends itself. And I've been doing that all along. And my first book they picked up for a feature. They never made it. So
Hmm.
I've always, it's just how I write. It's not that deliberate. Um, but I've always thought, man, I should be in the movies, you know. And then they made The Night Agent, and I said, oh my God, you know, I'm pinching myself because a lot of
Yeah,
people think of that. It's very rare for it to come together. So I'm counting
right,
my,
right. It usually does not happen.
yeah. Now,
Certainly not. Yeah.
because you've had tremendous success on screen, have you, gone Hollywood? Did you have some years there where you were taking meetings and writing screenplays?
I took some meetings,
Oh, okay.
but you know how it is. I sort of feel like my job is writing books.
Mhm.
It's sort of what I'm good at. Uh, and there is an art to writing a screenplay. And I sort of feel like other people have that art, have that skill. Not,
Yeah,
it's not my thing.
yeah. And it's also, this is, if you can put food on the table doing it, this is the best job in the world. You know,
Yeah,
I go to
yeah.
my garage, you go to your office, and you just write. And the form of the novel, you can go a little longer. You can,
Hmm.
you know, really get into character. It's not this like, well, this is 123 pages. This is
Right.
unacceptable. Yeah. So yeah, I
And
love
you're the
writing.
boss.
Yes, yes. And it comes out, you know, I think you and I both know people who had really successful careers in Hollywood, really talented people. And you say, well, when's the last thing that came out? And they said, well, you know, my first book, which was like a coming of age memoir, and then they turned it into like a mob comedy or something. And then I've been working steadily for 25 years and no one's ever seen anything. And then they say, this is so frustrating. And I'm sorry to be speaking for other people, but this is kind of a composite of folks I've talked to. They're like,
Yeah,
I'm going to go write the book because you write the book and then it comes out
right. It's
almost
actually
all the
then
time.
you've got something.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's a real sweet spot. And when I was starting out, I was buddies in college and then in early journalism stuff with Matt Iglesias, who's like a blogger or a journalist. And his dad is a really interesting figure. He's a like a very serious literary novelist, and he also wrote like genre
Mhm.
television and some great films, like the Jeff Bridges airplane crash movie. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Down? No.
and Death and the Maiden. He's just a great and he was nice enough to talk to me when I my first book came out. And he said, you know, if you can write the books, that is the best writing job in the world. And it
Yeah.
was so great to hear because I didn't get caught up in the Hollywood stuff too much. And I love the Hollywood stuff. I like to go on set and be a tourist, and it's so cool.
Yep.
But you know, and it's also, you know, they're moving their families to Vancouver for 4 months to shoot. It's a tough job. I novel writing has its moments too, but you know, now that I have a young family, it's really nice to be able to stay close to home.
Yeah. Um, you've got a co-producer credit on The Night Agent, right?
Yes.
Um, but you haven't written scripts for the show, have you?
No.
You-
I mean, it's basically because I created the story. And
Mhm.
Sean Ryan, the very well-known, incredibly talented showrunner, he and I talked at the beginning, and he was so gracious because I was just honored that he was part of it. And then he was like, well, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? I want to make sure you like the script. And then we had some conversations about sort of the general character arcs.
Mhm.
And then the writers have been so nice, but they've just run with it. And it's like you were saying, it's a very different skill. And it's really interesting because it's also like an apprenticeship. You see the folks that were assistants, you know, they were at the edge of the writer's room in their 20s, like taking notes, and then they work their way up. And then,
Yeah.
you know, and it's really cool. And Sean is part of this, and the way he does television is part of this. He has his writers on set, and he's teaching each one of them how to be a showrunner. And I didn't realize that that was sort of at risk until the writer's strike, where they said, you know, we want to make sure we can slowly train like a new generation of showrunners. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's a really cool world, and I'm lucky to be able to go peek into it, but not have to be, um, you know, I got to go home from the literal insane asylum where they were shooting at 10 o'clock at night. And I think they went for 6 more hours in the tunnels of the old psychiatric unit,
Oh my
those
God.
night agent tunnel scenes. I mean, it was like 500 people just working. It was like seeing the Seabees, you know, set up on an island in World War II or something. It was crazy the amount of work.
Do you think that you would be writing novels if you weren't a journalist first?
Yes, yes, yeah. But I was lucky. The journalism kind of saved me
How so?
because I was writing. There's a great line from Long Day's Journey in the Night where he says, I'll probably misquote this, but he says, I'm like the guy bumming for the cigarette. I have the habit, but not the means. And when I was writing, I had that writing itch in high school and college, and I loved it, but I didn't know what I wanted to write. And so in the literary fiction, in the college courses, they say, here are New Yorker stories. Literally, the teacher at Harvard just like dropped a bunch of New Yorkers and was like, you got to write this stuff. It was so like, it was so like commercial. It was like if you had like a really cynical old like newspaper editor, but it was the literary class. And you had all these 18-year-olds trying to write like kitchen sink domestic realism,
Yep.
and you really have to have been like kicked around by life a little bit, and and to write that stuff. So it was like kind of funny because we were just a bunch of idiot 18-year-olds who had it pretty cushy. So I was bad at that, and then I tried to write Christopher Buckley kind of stuff,
Yeah.
Evelyn Waugh kind of stuff, and that sort of came through in the 500, which has humor and a lot of voice. And then what people told me with regard to a manuscript that I threw out before the 500 is you're actually really good at the thriller elements. And I had brought those in because I didn't know how to like bring the story in for a landing. I'm like, oh, I guess I need a plot. Um, and they said this sort of like Evelyn Waugh, Christopher Buckley stuff it's not as good. So it was really interesting to find out what my strengths were and how they weren't what I anticipated going in.
So you had written a sort of Chris Buckley-esque novel.
That novel, I wrote it for 7 years, and
Yeah.
it started like that. It was supposed to be like, I don't know, like an Evelyn Waugh, Chris Buckley kind of like social satire of DC. And then the plot was about uh foreign agents, because I was first in DC in the run up to the Iraq War, and there were foreign agents around. So it
Yeah.
slowly became a thriller, and then I slowly jettisoned the more Chris Buckley-esque elements,
Hmm.
and then we threw that book out, and that took 7 years. And then the next book, the 500, took 9 months and changed
Isn't
my
that
life.
interesting?
Yeah,
How fast it can go when you're in the groove, right?
yeah, and I had my first agent. He was a little bit more prescriptive, and I brought him this big baggy mess of a plot and he's like, no, he's like, it's just got to be like good guy, bad guy, and he told me to really go back to basics, which I is the thing I always have to remind myself. I was like, okay, and then the 500 came out in like I did it in 9 months, and then I was
Hmm.
just hoping to write a novel, and the 500, we got a huge deal and then a
Hmm.
big film deal. And I was just an unemployed reporter, and it was wild. And a quote from Joe Finder, which is very nice of you.
Uh, we hear a lot about how fractured the media landscape is these days. It's harder and harder to find shared media experiences, shows that everyone watches, when there were three channels,
Yeah.
right, back in the day. But the night agent has been an international phenomenon. So what do you think people connect with about that story?
Well, I mean, there's a couple things. There's things I pick up, little bits of advice, and one of them is the core of your story should be two people getting together somehow. Whether it's a thriller or a rom-com or a buddy comedy. So people love that. And then, not to like play media critic, but for a while, for a variety of reasons, a lot of the television stuff, and it was really cool. And I won't pretend to be an expert, but the different streaming services, they were competing, and they were trying to attract really all this creative talent, and they let them do whatever they wanted. And they
Yeah.
made all this incredible creative stuff. Um, and and it was interesting, the books like you and I write, for a while, people were like, oh, nobody wants this sort of like, you know, uh, I won't call it a dad novel, but like, just a like the sort of story I grew up in the 80s and 90s, just like a straightforward thriller. And then some people say it was like The Night Agent, not to self-aggrandize or anything, but The Night Agent was the surprise thing where that show came out. Nobody expected all that much from it, and then it was a giant hit. And they said,
Yeah.
"Oh, let's go back to these just like um, stories that are, simple, not that simple, but like good guys, bad guys, very visceral stakes."
Hmm.
And goes back to some of the movies and novels I grew up on, like the 70s conspiracy thrillers,
Yes.
the
I
80s,
love that stuff.
yeah,
Yes.
the 80s paperbacks
Yep.
and 80s um 80s blockbusters. And they can be as smart as you want,
Right.
so like you can have Die Hard, or Steven Soderbergh is one of my favorite people in film, because he makes these movies that they're like really satisfying genre thrillers,
Yeah.
but they're incredibly smart. So it's just really nice to see um, a market for that, and to be a small part of it.
Hmm. You have written about how it's getting harder to plot thrillers in the current environment where truth is stranger than fiction. I forget the title of your,
Yes, yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So tell us about that. What's your perspective?
Well, it's been crazy, So I started writing in the aughts, and I was in DC, and I was like enmeshed in DC. So when I was like, oh, they're gonna murder someone because of politics, that was a little far-fetched. That makes sense in Russian politics, not so much in kind of like traditional DC politics. And so when I did the 500, it felt very like larger than life with me, that you would have somebody with like a vault of blackmail material who's
Yeah.
controlling all that stuff. And then you saw that in real life political stuff. And I mean, right now, like I didn't get to read the news today, but I we might be invading Greenland. I mean, it's just we're like through the looking glass on stuff.
Hmm.
And my takeaway for the essay that I think you're talking about was that, it used to be we'd go to these thrillers for excitement and danger, and then but also there's real value in that they make sense, and you
Huh?
have good and evil, and there's I don't want to like feed into conspiracy theories, but I think these thrillers can be good because they scratch people's itch for a good conspiracy
Hmm.
without them going on the internet and going down some rabbit hole and becoming completely crazy. And it's funny to read a book like you and I would write, where there's some like evil genius behind everything who's almost unstoppable. That's reassuring. It would be amazing if there was some like sensible evil genius behind everything who could be bested, instead of just like whatever's happening right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been feeling that thrillers are even more important these days because they remind us of what right and wrong actually look like, you know?
Yeah. And there's a funny aspect. There's kind of there's two pieces to it. The one, which is totally wild to me, is that you would think it'd be hard to write a political thriller because there's such a stark partisan divide.
Yeah.
But people are so in their bubbles that when you have a political thriller where there's an evil president, they each think it's the other guy. And so I've written books and somebody from the right will be like, that was this guy, right? And somebody from the left will be like, well, that was this thing, right? And I said, well, no, it wasn't either. And I've never heard of that. But people really project so much and they're so in their bubbles that it's wild. They sort of see whatever boogeyman they want to. And then the other piece is I don't do like any sort of partisanship
Mhm.
uh, because it doesn't age well. And when I sit down with a novel, I don't want to be soapboxed too. But that forces you to, like you were saying, it forces you to these deeper themes, which I find very reassuring to think about. You think about corruption at a deep level, or like
Yeah.
the sacrifices people make to do the right thing. So I find getting away from the partisanship really makes for a richer story.
That's a very good point.
Thank you.
Um, the next season of The Night Agent starts next month,
Yes.
right?
Yes. February 19th.
Do you have a cameo again this season?
No, I just did the one cameo in
Okay.
season two.
I have
Uh,
to ask, people always ask about cameos.
it's so fun. What's your cameo
I've had,
situation?
God, did I have a cameo even? I don't remember. I don't think so. No.
It was terrifying. And it was funny because I had been on tour. I had been to the
Yeah,
Southwest Florida conference in Fort Myers, and I
yes.
brought one shirt and a bunch of flip-flops and stuff. And then I got to Manhattan and I did a bunch of book tour like stuff in a row. Oh yeah, and then I went to DC and I like did a CIA tour and I was really wearing out the shirt. And then and I was nervous about the cameo and the set, but I was finagling it. And then they sent me the look the night before, and they said, okay, dress like a billionaire, or 2 nights before. And I said, I don't have billionaire clothes with me right now. But I
Whatever
was
that is, but yeah.
yeah, I was staying at my wife's uncle's apartment on the Upper West Side, and he has beautiful clothes. Um, but he and I was so I went into his closet and he had all these Prada loafers and things. Um, but he's like 6'5" or something. He's really big. And I am not 6'5". So I was like wondering if I could wear his shoes like a little kid. So I had to go to Macy's and I didn't look like a billionaire. I looked like somebody who had gone to Macy's the day before. But then I was the look checked out and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was a really good experience.
Yeah. So what is your next project?
The next project is it's early stages. It's about a firefighter in San Diego who finds out that an operative, some sort of shadowy intelligence operative, is using his identity as an alias.
A stolen identity.
Yeah, basically someone has stolen his identity because I
Hmm.
I mean I love to do these things with identity. So you have the spy stuff. And then in some ways, the actors are like spies and that they're always like pretending to be different people. So in this situation, this guy, it's almost like Bourne Identity. If Bourne
Hmm.
hadn't lost his memory, he just
Hmm.
finds out that there's, you know, um, passports in his name and money in his name and accounts in his name. And he has
Yes.
to find out what's going on. And he has a military background, so it gets into all of that. And it's set in San Diego, so it's a lot of fun because it's a lot of fun to write closer to home.
Yeah. It makes the research easier, right?
Yeah, although I'm way behind on calling the fire. I've been doing so much promo. I'm way behind on calling the fire department to do a ride
Or
along.
right along.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Patrick, are you there? There he is.
I am indeed. Yeah.
Oh, right. Great.
Yeah, really interesting discussion. I just have a quick question for you, Matthew. Where did, or maybe you already said it, where did you grow up?
I grew up about an hour south of New York, um, basically just suburban New Jersey, Middletown, Red Bank area, and it was about 15 minutes away from the shore. So we spent a lot of time at the beach, but it was just Middletown. It's the most kind of straight down the middle suburb you can imagine.
So now you live in San Diego. Do you consider yourself at heart an East Coaster?
I guess so, yeah,
Yeah.
because we keep turning around and we're like, we've been here for how long?
No.
And because my entire family lives in one town in New Jersey, basically. They're a
Is
little
that right?
spread out on the
Okay.
East Coast. So the idea of somebody moving to the East Coast is pretty wild. And then also, the surfers here and the beach folks, because I'm in this funky beach town and area. Um, they're so
You're not
crusty.
you're not an OB, are you?
I am an OB. Yeah.
Are you really?
Yeah, yeah. Which is
That's the
at
coolest little town.
It's really cool, and it's the end of the eight. So if you just get on the highway in Arizona and just leave with no destination in mind to head to the beach, you end up in my town. Um, and it's a little bit like Venice Beach in LA, which is the end of
Hmm.
the 10. I don't know if there's a cause there. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we're talking about Ocean Beach. Uh,
yeah. And
yeah.
and then the surfers, you'll be like, you know, they'll be like, well, you've only been surfing here 15 years, man. What are you doing?
Yeah.
They're very like
They're
very
serious about that.
territorial.
Locals only.
Yeah, yeah.
And they have that kind of lopsided, is it a big Christmas tree thing?
Yeah, yeah, that's
What is
because
that?
our town, they have it used to be where the Hells Angels were in San Diego. So they have a biker Santa ends the parade, the OB Christmas parade. And then as part of its kind of funky nature, the town, they find a tree that someone's going to cut down every year and they donate it to be the Christmas tree. So there's always this like lopsided ailing Christmas tree at the end of the main drag in town. And it's a really neat town. It's sort of stuck in the 60s. So when they filmed Almost Famous, they used Ocean Beach for those 60s exterior shots.
Right. They've tried to resist, a lot of corporate businesses. And we have a good friend who lives there, so we go
Oh
over.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's such a cool little town. But
yeah. They like
um,
threw bricks through the Starbucks windows when it
is
came
that
in.
right? Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Famous Dog Beach.
Yeah, yeah,
Not
it's
to
a,
make
it's a
this
great.
about
And we just
Ocean Beach.
stumbled into it. We were trying out San Diego, and there's a thing called sabbatical homes where you can rent a professor's house while they're on sabbatical. And so we rented a place when we first moved here to check it out, and then we just found ourselves like right up the street in this cool beach town. And yeah, I love it. I'm always walking at the cliffs to get my to brainstorm slash procrastinate.
Now, Joe, you definitely would consider yourself an East Coaster at
Oh
heart,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
As
for
much
sure.
as I love the weather in Boston right now, I'm being sardonic. Really hate it. It is cold.
Yeah.
But I mean, for writing, there's nothing like a Boston winter and reading.
Yes, for reading and writing,
Yeah.
you've got to stay in and do your work or do your reading, and yeah,
So, Joe, inquiring minds want to know, what are you working on currently?
I'm working on the successor to the Oligarch's Daughter, which is actually a standalone as well. Um, and I'm about 100 pages into it, and it's going pretty well. And I'm avoiding talking about it, obviously,
Sure.
but that's what I do.
Yeah. There have been a couple people that are intrigued by the artwork behind both of you. The Olivetti, we see part of an Olivetti poster above your mantle there. Oh, that's
Yeah,
so cool.
it's a great old poster. It is a sorry, the camera angle switches here. It's a typewriter on railroad tracks, zooming down the
Oh,
tracks.
yeah, I see that.
See the paper flying behind it? Yeah. Anyway, it's a cool poster.
Yeah.
You want
And how
the
about this painting behind you, Matthew?
Well, I feel like my Zoom setup is very lacking, but this is something I got when I was like in my early 20s. I can't even remember the name of it right now, but I think it's a Magritte. And and yeah, it just appealed to me because it's a little surreal, but not too in your face.
Right.
And I I had an office set up, and then I finally got around to putting all my little tchotchkes and like CIA souvenirs on it, and then we had a baby. So I moved my work setup into the garage, which is not presentable for Zoom in any way. There's just like surfboards and boxes behind me. Um, but I really like being in the garage. You know, I can't hear anything going on in the house, and it's kind of my own little writing writing cottage. It's a detached garage back there. Yeah, so I know. Joe, are you in your office or is this in
Yeah,
home? Oh, very nice.
yeah. My office is actually right across the street from where we live.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I've sort of, I
very
don't know.
civilized.
Well, I need to get out of the house in order to write, I found.
Yeah.
And so it's a great office. I love it.
And do you have a writing cottage at your, if this isn't too much information to share, at your summer place?
I do.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
writing cottage.
Got a studio there where I work, and I actually get even more done there, I've learned, than in Boston.
And does it have running water?
Yeah, of course
Oh,
it
okay.
does. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Do you think it was like a Walden Pond kind of
Well, the
setup?
garage doesn't, so I have to run inside and
Oh, okay.
when I'm in the throes of inspiration and make sure I don't get pulled into into any house stuff. But yeah.
So this kind of a question for both of you guys. I understand that, in the espionage community, in the espionage world these days, there's been a real kind of return to old school tradecraft and spycraft, whatever you call it. Because of the obviously technology has been a miracle, but also it's very vulnerable. Um,
Mhm.
is that accurate? And has that figured into your work?
The old school tradecraft.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're making a very good point. I think that um, the technology has gotten. I think people are suspicious of technology. Um, I don't know, Matt, what's your take?
Oh, that's absolutely right. And the CIA's Chinese network all
Hmm.
used some digital communication system and it
Yep.
was breached and then they were all neutralized.
Hmm.
And it was a tragedy. So yeah, people are going back to more kind of analog, no devices, anything.
Yep.
And I mean, the interesting thing to me these days, and this sort of figures into the firefighter book a little bit, is you can't just like in Day of the Jackal go find a graveyard in Brittany, wherever he was, and then say, "Oh, this kid died when he was 3." It's terrible, but I will assume his identity, which was kind of the standard move and a real move. The
Yeah.
Russian illegals use that um, forever. So now you need a clean skin, which is somebody who has never done any espionage stuff and they can only do it once because every time you cross a border, you're sort of biometrically scanned. So it takes a lot of the fun out because it's implausible for somebody to be slipping disguises and moving through things. But it, every I can't remember the phrase, but every thing like that, it creates some opportunities because you have to have a situation where you have a character who almost has to be thrust into their first espionage thing. And I
Mhm.
think I haven't figured out the whole book yet, but I think that's part of the reason this firefighter is kind of sucked into everything.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think about, Tom Perry, so sad, to see him go. Such a wonderful writer and a great person.
Yeah.
But I think about his Jane Whitefield series, and I talked to him about this n numerous times over the years about how, the whole premise was this woman who helped people disappear, helped people who were on the run assume new identities. Um, and I know it was harder and harder for him to make that plausible in this world, and but he pulled it off beautifully.
And
Mhm.
Oligarch's Daughter, it was really great because I was reading it and I was like, oh God, thanks. Thank God. Joe did all the research on how you would do it in 2025. And I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, and also to kind of echo the question, Joe, that you asked Matthew, which is, in this crazy post-truth insanity that we're currently living in, what are the challenges for writing in your genre?
Um, well, one of the big challenges is to stay away from politics as much as possible, from partisan politics,
Yeah,
uh, simply because people are so polarized that it's sort of a waste to get dragged into that kind of stuff. So one of my challenges is to stay away from my feelings about politics these days and keep it to um, a non-political yet politically relevant
Mm.
story, if that makes sense.
tall order, I'm sure. Kind
You-
of backing up a little bit and taking a broader, detached viewpoint of
Mhm,
everything. Yeah,
mhm.
right.
I mean, I pretend a lot of it didn't happen, uh, recently because you can't really write about like the current administration without it being it's so crazy. So if I pick
Mhm.
up a book, I don't, it was like when I picked up a book, I didn't really want to read about COVID.
Right.
And I don't really want to read about like, pulled from the headlines. It's cool if it's, folks like Mark Graney and these other thriller authors, Brad Thor, who are like, they're doing research and you're learning about the underlying stuff.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I just want to pick up a novel and get away from that for a
Get
minute.
away from politics.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, but some of those when you're writing about the international affairs stuff, and then all of a sudden, you're like, oh, my Greenland novel comes out in 6 months. Those guys really do some scary rewrites. I had one of those on the Night Agent.
You did?
Yeah, it was
Yeah, who'd have thunk it, right?
yeah, well, I mean the notion that Russia, the book is much more about Russia, um, maybe co-opting a US president. And when I started writing the book, that was a very sort of like obscure notion, but then it became the big controversy around Trump. And I said, well, I don't want this to feel partisan or behind the news. So it was terrifying at the moment because I was sort of like I had a book 80% done, but it forced me to do some final twists which made it less partisan and more surprising.
Yep.
So it worked out for the best, but it was a bit of a white knuckle um, ride for a minute there.
And then we won't keep you too long, but who are some of the writers that you both really admire and kind of are inspired by? And they can be, the oldies like John Le Carre. It's kind of the gold standard in my view, and Graham Greene and people like that.
Mhm.
But there's a great current crop of your, new writers like David McCloskey and Dan Festerman's, not a new writer, but he's another
Yeah.
great one. Who are some of the people that you both admire?
This is going to sound pandering, but I really like Joe.
No.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
Mark Rainey does a great job.
He
John le
does.
Carre is somebody I always go back to. Charles McCarry is kind of one of your
Yeah.
like kind
Yes,
of deep cut spy novels. I like going back to.
up there with Tom Perry. That's right.
What about you, Joe? Anybody come to mind?
Um, I think Dan Silva's really good.
Yep.
I think I was looking at my bookshelf. Um, Harlan Coben is terrific. Always somehow manages to have a twist,
Yeah.
20,000 twists in his books. Um, he's really good. But I've got a collection on my shelf of some of my favorite older ones, like Frederick Forsyth and um, William Goldman,
Oh
Mm,
yeah,
right? Who I loved. Ira Levin. And these are people who haven't been published in a long time, but they're really good.
I think there's a new Boys from Brazil like big budget adaptation coming out soon.
Is there really?
Yeah, yeah,
really
I think so. I mean, don't or
Yeah.
fact check me on that, but yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
fantastic. There's a new, is it a sequel to the Odessa file that
Oh,
I,
really?
I'm not sure if somebody finished it or it's out now. I can't remember exactly the details, but
Mhm.
yeah, no, we got to meet Frederick Forsyth here, and that was a real thrill.
Yes.
Yeah, he was such a cool guy.
Fullerton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I really appreciate your time. Um, Congratulations, Matthew, on publication day for the brand new book, The Method.
Oh,
Here it
thank
is,
you.
folks.
Yeah, I can't wait to get back to the store. It's one of my favorites,
Yeah,
and I always love catching up with you and Barbara. So
that's great. We'd love
next
to
time
see
I'm
you
in town.
both out here again soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, and thank you, Joe.
My pleasure. Great
And
book.
thanks
I'm
everybody for tuning in tonight too.